The data is in, and it's not matching up with the headlines that we see splashed all over the place proclaiming that AI is going to take all of our jobs.
They took our job!
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma Roloff, and in these episodes of Change in the Wild, I take a look at the headlines and how they relate back to digital transformation, change management, and leadership. And today, I want to dive into a report that was recently released by Yale's Budget Lab, taking a specific look at generative AI and the impacts that it's had on actual disruption within the workforce since its introduction with the release of ChatGPT about 33 months ago. If you're enjoying our content, consider subscribing to our channel, giving this video a like, and dropping a comment. We personally respond to every comment that we get because we enjoy having a conversation with you. The goal of this report was to take a look at this data to see if it is markedly different than what we've seen with other technology advancements of the past, things like the introduction of the computer and the internet, as well as looking at trends over time in comparison to what we've seen in this last couple of years. So the first part of the report that I think is important to dive into is that initial comparison between the computer, the internet, and artificial intelligence. And what the report found is that generative AI is changing workers' roles at a slightly higher pace than what we saw with the internet and the computer, but it's not substantially different, and it's trending in a very similar way to what we've seen with those other technology advancements. And that might be surprising to people because what we're hearing in the headlines all over the place is that the pace of change is so staggering right now that we're not going to have time to respond to the disruption that's being created by artificial intelligence. And even this week, I sat in on a panel tied to AI and disruption, and somebody on the panel said that they thought we would be past the point that we are with artificial intelligence now. He's an AI consultant, and he thought because of the pace of change that we would see enterprises adopting this technology, people moving past their fear of artificial intelligence and not being worried about trying to get adoption or find use cases anymore. But when we take a look at the actual data, the US Census Bureau says that really we're actually starting to see that companies with more than 50 employees are starting to decline in the amount of AI adoption that they have internally. And part of that comes because they're not finding the ROI that they were anticipating that they might find as they started to chase shiny objects.
Follow the shiny object.
And when we take a look at the disruption, again, that's been promised by everybody, the industry that has the most disruption reported in the Budget Lab's report is the technology industry or the information industry that is creating these AI solutions and going out and looking for talent to come in and build these solutions for them. So what we're seeing is these headlines that are telling us it's going to change everybody's job. But really, the shifts that we're seeing are in the technology industry where they're trying to create these tools as opposed to having that filter down into every other industry and enterprise at the rate that it was being promised. The other piece that I think is really interesting about this report is that they looked at the rate of disruption over time beyond just the introduction of the internet and the computer. And what they found is that the biggest rate of change actually came during the Industrial Revolution in the 1940s and 1950s, and that technology hasn't really even touched that level of disruption yet. So being able to say that we can't adopt or shift or move at the rate that we need to keep up with these technology advancements, we haven't even gotten close to what they had to come up against in the 1940s and 1950s.
You don't say.
One of the last pieces that I think is really interesting in this report as well is that they looked at information tied to specifically young or entry-level workers. And this is a big topic of conversation that I've seen popping up a lot, especially in light of that article about the canary in the coal mine and the unemployment increases that we've seen in those entry-level job populations. And the report does show that there has been a slight increase in that in comparison to the time frame of 2015 to 2025. But in the report, they recognize it could be a canary in the coal mine, or it could be a slowing of the job market. And when we take a look at the research from back in 2009 to 2011, so a very similar time frame to the 33 months since that introduction of generative AI, that unemployment rate for entry-level workers was significantly higher than it is at this current point. So is that a canary in the coal mine that AI is stealing jobs, or is it a canary in the coal mine that our job market is slowing and this might be a symptom of something other than artificial intelligence taking our jobs?
Don't know, you tell me.
So when we take a look at this report and all of this information, what does that mean from a leadership standpoint? What do we need to be doing and how do we need to be thinking about this data? I think the most important thing that we need to do is first recognize that people still are going to have the fear associated with job replacement. And that fear doesn't go away unless we educate and upskill. And we also need to recognize that while it might not be disrupting at an exponentially high rate that's going to eliminate our jobs like that, it is changing things. And as a leader and organizations that are employing people have a responsibility to help their team upskill and prepare for what is coming. And around the same time, I think in the last couple of days, the CEO of Walmart came out and made some statements that are being presented in the light of a warning that AI is going to change everybody's job. But I think that this is an important language nuance that leaders should lean into. AI is not going to steal your job. AI is going to change your job. And right now, despite what the headlines are telling us, we have time to put together a plan to adapt and be prepared for the changes that are coming our way. When we take a look at the messages that we're hearing from these leaders outside of the space of artificial intelligence, they're saying it's going to have an impact. It is going to change things, but here's what we're doing to prepare. And smart leaders are going to follow that same trajectory that Walmart CEO put out there. They're going to put together digital literacy programs that help their team adapt to the change. They're going to focus on helping their team foster their uniquely human skills so that they have this combination of soft skills and humanity that can balance out the technology, but also understand it and figure out where and how to bring it in to solve real problems. As I mentioned, the data is showing us that enterprises are actually slowing down their rate of AI adoption. And it's because so many companies ran headfirst into the idea of AI first strategy and chasing shiny objects without real problems at the center of what they were trying to accomplish. The way for us to hit the plateau of productivity that comes through Gartner's hype cycle is for us to focus in on education and upskilling and helping people understand how and where we should use this technology so that they can surface solutions to the real problems that they have in the business, and we can use the technology with intentionality. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this and the newly presented data from the Budget Lab and your thoughts on whether AI is actually impacting your role, your industry, your company differently than what the data might tell us. I love to have these conversations with people, so please put your thoughts into the comment. I respond to each and every one of them. Thanks for joining and have a great day. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. If you like what you saw, be sure to come back on a weekly basis and subscribe for more expert interviews focused on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.